Across the United Kingdom, some train stations are more than just stops along the rail. They are places where the past refuses to leave. Places where passengers have been waiting for decades, maybe centuries. And some of them are not living. From the chilling apparition of a woman in black drifting through abandoned waiting rooms to spectral locomotives thundering along long-closed lines, these stations carry more than history. They carry ghosts, tragedies, and legends that still make travelers glance over their shoulders. Here we will explore the top 10 most haunted train stations in the UK for 2025. Each one has terrifying reports, eerie sightings, and real-life encounters that will make you think twice before catching that late-night train. So stay with me. Keep your ticket close. And remember, not every passenger you see is alive. Number 1. Liverpool Street Station, London. Liverpool Street Station is one of the busiest in the UK, serving thousands of commuters and tourists every day. But when the last train departs and the platforms fall silent, a different kind of passenger is said to appear. Staff working the night shift have reported seeing ghostly Victorian figures pacing the platforms, their clothing tattered as if they had stepped straight out of the 19th century. One of the most famous apparitions is a man in a brown suit and bowler hat who stands silently near the escalators, staring at nothing in particular. Witnesses say he appears for only a few seconds before vanishing into thin air. This isn't just a random ghost story. Construction workers in the 1980s uncovered a mass grave beneath the station, believed to be victims of the plague. The station was built over part of the old Bethlehem Hospital burial grounds, and many believe the spirits disturbed during development still wander here. Security guards have reported footsteps echoing along empty corridors and doors slamming when no one is around. Some have even heard the faint sound of crying children in the early hours of the morning, though there is no logical explanation for it. Engineers doing maintenance work in the tunnels have complained of an oppressive feeling, as if they were being watched by unseen eyes. Passengers waiting for late-night trains have also spoken about seeing shadowy figures on distant platforms, figures that vanish when approached. For a station in the heart of a modern city, Liverpool Street carries with it an undeniable weight of history, and perhaps, the restless energy of those who never completed their final journey. And as unsettling as this sounds, the next station on our list brings its own dark history, one tied to war, tragedy, and spectral sightings that have terrified railway workers for decades. Number 2. York Railway Station, North Yorkshire. If Liverpool Street Station hides its horrors beneath the bustle of London, York Railway Station wears its hauntings more openly. This sprawling Victorian station, opened in 1877, is a masterpiece of 19th-century architecture. But behind the elegant ironwork and sweeping platforms lies a far darker history, one soaked in war, tragedy, and loss. During both World Wars, York Station became a departure point for soldiers heading to the front lines. Many never returned. Witnesses claim that some of these soldiers still linger, their spirits replaying final moments before boarding trains that would carry them to their deaths. Late at night, staff have seen uniformed figures standing motionless on Platform 4, their faces pale, their expressions unreadable. Approach them and they dissolve like mist. But the station's most famous ghost is said to belong to a young woman in Victorian dress. She is often spotted pacing the footbridge, looking desperately up and down the tracks. Local legend says she was waiting for her lover, a railway worker who was killed in an accident. Heartbroken and unable to face life without him, she took her own life on the platform. Her grief seems trapped in time. Some nights, the air turns cold on the bridge, and witnesses hear soft sobbing echoing across the station. Perhaps the most unnerving reports come from the underground tunnels and storage rooms beneath the station. Porters and maintenance crews have spoken of sudden drops in temperature, faint whispers in the dark, and the unmistakable sound of footsteps following them through the empty passages. What makes York particularly unsettling is the way the hauntings seem to mix with the station's atmosphere. It's not just the ghosts you might see, it's the overwhelming sense of history pressing in from every corner. This is a place where past and present overlap, and where some journeys may never end. Number 3. Aldgate Underground Station, London. If York's hauntings feel like echoes of history, Aldgates are something else entirely, like the dead are still here, watching the living pass by. Opened in 1876, Aldgate Station sits in one of the oldest parts of London, where plague pits, public executions, and centuries of human misery lie just beneath the pavement. When construction crews first began digging for the underground line, They unearthed thousands of skeletons, victims of the Black Death, hastily buried during the 14th century when London was drowning in death. Many believe the station was built directly over one of these mass graves. Almost immediately, the hauntings began. Staff reports sudden, unexplainable cold spots on the platforms, bitterly cold even in the middle of summer. There are whispers in the tunnels, faint and indecipherable, as though dozens of voices are murmuring just beyond earshot. Sometimes the noises swell into full-blown cries, but when workers investigate, the tunnels are empty. One of the most famous incidents occurred in the 1980s. A maintenance worker was carrying out repairs on the track late at night when he collapsed, suffering from an unexpected heart attack. As his colleagues rushed to his aid, they swore they saw a gray-haired figure kneel beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Moments later, the man regained consciousness, but the figure was gone. The strange part, that the worker had been alone before his colleagues arrived. Passengers also report encounters. Some say they've seen a woman in ragged, dirt-stained clothes stepping aboard the last train, only for her to vanish before the next stop. Others have spotted shadowy figures darting between service tunnels, as if something is trying to avoid being seen. Aldgate isn't a place you simply travel through, it's a place that swallows you into its history, a history that has never truly been laid to rest. Even in the noise of the modern underground, there's a silence here that feels unnatural, as though the dead are simply waiting for the trains to stop so they can move freely once more. From the depths of London's plague-ridden past, our journey now heads to a station steeped in maritime tragedy, where ghostly footsteps echo along the platforms and the sea seems to bring its dead inland. Number 4, Portsmouth Harbour Station, Hampshire. If Aldgate's ghosts are born of plague and ancient burial grounds, Portsmouth Harbour Station's hauntings are tied to the sea and the countless souls it has claimed. Opened in 1876, the station has long served as a vital transport link for sailors, soldiers, and passengers heading to and from the bustling docks. But with Portsmouth's naval history comes a shadow: shipwrecks, wartime tragedies, and those who departed here never to return. Passengers waiting on the platforms often report hearing the sound of heavy boots marching in unison, Navy footsteps, yet no one is there. On quiet nights, these phantom footsteps are joined by the distant clang of rigging against masts, the cries of unseen sailors, and the unmistakable scent of seawater drifting through the air, even when the tide is far out. One of the most chilling reports came from a station guard in the early 1990s. While patrolling after the last train had departed, he saw a man in a Royal Navy uniform standing at the far end of the platform. The guard called out, but the man didn't move. As he approached, the figure stepped back into the shadows and vanished. Later, the guard described the uniform in detail, down to the buttons. An elderly former sailor who overheard the story confirmed it matched the style worn during the First World War. Then there's the drowned woman legend. Late-night travelers have reported glimpsing a pale, dripping wet woman wandering the station's waiting room, leaving a trail of water on the floor. By the time anyone goes to help her, she's gone and the floor is dry. Some believe she is the spirit of a young woman who drowned in the harbor in the 1920s after her fiancé's ship failed to return from sea. Even the trains themselves are not immune to the station's spectral influence. Drivers speak of a mysterious figure seen from their cab windows, standing dangerously close to the tracks, only for it to dissolve into thin air before they pass. At Portsmouth Harbour, you don't need to be at sea to feel the call of the dead. The station is a reminder that for every journey that begins here, some never find their way home. From the salt-stained hauntings of Portsmouth, we now head to a station where tragedy struck on the rails themselves, its platforms forever marked by disaster. Number 5, Moorgate Station, London. If Portsmouth Harbour's hauntings carry the echo of the sea, Moorgate's ghosts are born from a catastrophe beneath the city itself. On the morning of February 28, 1975, tragedy struck when a Northern City Line train failed to stop at the station, crashing into the wall of the tunnel end at high speed. 43 people lost their lives, and over 70 were injured in what remains one of the worst peacetime rail disasters in British history. Since that day, Moorgate has carried an uneasy atmosphere. Commuters describe sudden drops in temperature on the platforms, strange mechanical screeches in the tunnels when no trains are due, and the feeling of being pressed in by invisible crowds, like the crush of panicked passengers in those final moments. Staff members working night shifts have told of hearing ghostly announcements over the tannoy, voices calling out destinations that no longer exist, spoken in an old-fashioned, clipped accent. One night guard claimed to hear the words "train approaching" repeated over and over, though all systems showed no active lines or incoming services. Most unsettling are the spectral figures. Passengers waiting alone have spotted commuters in 1970s business attire, men in dark suits, women in patterned skirts, standing silently at the far ends of the platform. They vanish when approached. Train drivers have reported seeing a man standing on the tracks, staring blankly ahead, moments before impact, only to find the line completely clear. Even the escalators hold their own share of dread. One former employee spoke of the phantom ride, a sensation of being carried down by the escalator far longer than its physical length, accompanied by muffled screams in the distance. Some believe Moorgate's haunting is not just residual energy, but a kind of spiritual replay of that tragic morning. Others think the station has become a thin place, where the veil between life and death wears thin, and the echoes of 1975 still find their way into the present. From this tunnel-bound tragedy, we move to another haunted station, one where the ghosts don't wait for you underground. They follow you home. Number 6. Crewe Railway Station, Cheshire. This station has been in operation since the mid-1800s and became one of Britain's busiest and most important railway hubs. But with that history came tragedy. Countless railway workers and passengers have met their end here through accidents, collisions, and mishaps on the tracks. Some say the station is still a meeting place for those whose lives were cut short. Reports from night shift workers are especially chilling. Footsteps echo along deserted platforms where no living soul stands. In the dim light of the early morning, shadowy figures have been spotted moving toward the edge of the platform, only to vanish into thin air before reaching the tracks. Others speak of hearing a sudden rush of wind followed by the metallic screech of brakes, as if an unseen train is making an emergency stop. When investigated, nothing is there. One of the most unnerving accounts involves the phantom porter. Dressed in an old-fashioned railway uniform, he appears busy, pushing a luggage trolley down the platform. Witnesses claim they've seen him approach, only for his figure to fade away before their eyes. His identity remains a mystery, though railway historians believe he might have been a worker killed in a shunting accident over a century ago. Staff have grown used to these strange occurrences, but many admit they avoid certain parts of the station after midnight. The atmosphere changes, the air feels heavier, and the station, which is usually a place of movement and noise, becomes oppressively silent. In those moments, it feels as though the tragedies of the past are replaying themselves on a loop, and anyone who lingers too long might catch a glimpse of the station's ghostly history. Number 7. Aldwych Station, London Underground. Leaving the busy platforms of Crewe behind, we descend into the silent, sealed corridors of Aldwych Station, one of London's most famous ghost stations. Opened in 1907 and closed to the public in 1994, Aldwych now serves as a time capsule of the early underground era. But while the trains no longer stop here, something else seems to linger in its tunnels. Over the years, countless workers and film crews, Aldwych is often used as a set for movies and TV shows, have reported the same eerie encounter. The appearance of a woman dressed entirely in gray, gliding silently along the platform before vanishing into the darkness. Witnesses describe her as tall, elegant, and somehow out of place, as though she belongs to another century. Some believe she is the ghost of an actress from the nearby theaters who once used the station during her daily commute. Others think she may have perished during the Blitz, when Aldwych served as a shelter for Londoners escaping the bombs above. There are even whispers that she might have been trapped in a sealed-off tunnel after an accident during the station's construction. One unsettling pattern has emerged: she is almost always spotted when a person is alone. Staff members who stayed behind to lock up have heard slow, deliberate footsteps following them, only to turn and find no one there. Others say the air in the tunnels sometimes grows icy cold without warning, as if someone has passed right through them. The most unnerving accounts come from security guards. One claimed to have seen her watching him from the opposite platform late at night. He turned his head for a moment, and when he looked back she had disappeared, yet the sound of her heels clicking against the platform continued for several seconds in the empty station. Even without the living passengers, Aldwych seems to have its own timetable, one where the ghosts of the past are never late. And from here our haunted railway tour moves north, to one of Scotland's busiest stations, where the ghost of a soldier still walks the platforms. Number 8. Edinburgh Waverley Station, Scotland. Beneath the glass roof and constant bustle of Edinburgh Waverley Station lies a quieter, more spectral story. Among the rush of commuters and the roll of luggage wheels, some passengers have reported locking eyes with a young soldier in full World War I uniform. His expression is solemn, his gaze distant, as though he is looking for someone he will never meet again. Witnesses say he appears most often on the main concourse, standing still while the crowd flows around him. At first, nothing seems unusual. Edinburgh often sees historical reenactments, but those who approach notice something strange. The soldier's clothes look worn and dusty, and when they get close enough, he simply vanishes into thin air. Railway historians suggest he may be one of the many Scottish soldiers who departed from Waverley during the Great War, never to return. The station was a departure point for thousands of young men heading to the front lines in France and Belgium. Some believe the ghostly figure is a man still waiting to reunite with a loved one, unaware that a century has passed. Late-night maintenance crews have heard heavy bootsteps echoing down the platforms, even when no trains are scheduled and the area is locked. Others speak of the smell of tobacco smoke drifting through the air, the kind once carried in the pockets of military greatcoats, though smoking has been banned for decades. Taxi drivers waiting outside the station have told of seeing the soldier through the glass entrance doors, watching the street as if deciding whether to step outside. When they glance again, he's gone, replaced by nothing but the reflection of their own headlights. Edinburgh Waverley might be alive with the noise of trains, announcements and travelers, but for some, it's also a station where the echoes of war still pass through, a reminder that not every journey reaches its end. Next on our list is a station in Cornwall where passengers speak of a phantom train and a spectral guard who seems to be forever on duty. Number 9. Penzance Railway Station, Cornwall. Penzance Railway Station, perched at the far western tip of England, feels like the end of the line in more ways than one. By day, it's bright and open with sea air drifting in from the nearby harbor. By night the atmosphere changes. Locals speak of a train that pulls in without making a sound, a phantom locomotive that should not exist. Witnesses describe standing on the platform when a sudden rush of cold air sweeps past, followed by the faint screech of metal on rails. Moments later, a train-shaped shadow glides silently into the station. Its windows are dark and no passengers step out. Within seconds, it fades as though swallowed by the darkness beyond the tracks. Station staff also talk about the ghost of a guard who appears on late, quiet evenings. He wears an old-fashioned uniform from the early 20th century, complete with a peaked cap and brass buttons dulled by time. His lantern swings gently as he walks the platform, inspecting invisible carriages. One cleaner described an unsettling encounter. While locking up, she heard footsteps pacing just behind her. Turning around, she saw the guard only a few feet away. His face was pale and unreadable. Before she could speak, he stepped toward the train that wasn't there and vanished in mid-stride. Some railway historians tie these stories to a tragic accident in the 1910s when a guard was fatally injured while checking a train at night. Others say the ghost train belongs to an earlier era, carrying the souls of those lost at sea in the treacherous waters off Cornwall's coast, a spectral link between the land and the deep. Even in 2025, the station's modern upgrades haven't chased away its hauntings. Travelers catching an early morning train sometimes report hearing the hiss of steam and the clang of metal couplings, sounds from an age long before electric services ever reached Penzance. Number 10. Highgate Station, London Underground. Highgate Station sits like a ghost on the Northern Line, an abandoned relic that hasn't heard the regular rumble of trains in decades. Hidden behind fences and thick undergrowth, the disused platforms and tunnels still twist through the dark beneath North London. Explorers who have dared to enter, often illegally, describe a strange, oppressive stillness. The air feels heavy, Yet at times there's a subtle rush, as if the tunnels themselves are breathing. Others report hearing faint whispers in the pitch black, not the echoes of their own voices, but something deeper, layered, and coming from far down the track. Rail historians recall that during World War II, the site was used as an air raid shelter. Hundreds of people would huddle in the darkness while bombs fell overhead. Some believe the restless energy from those nights still lingers. Witnesses have described seeing the figure of a woman in 1940s clothing standing silently near the platform edge, gazing toward a train that will never arrive. A former maintenance worker once shared a chilling story. While inspecting one of the disused tunnels alone, he saw movement up ahead, the shadow of a man walking slowly toward him. He called out, thinking it was a colleague. The figure stopped, then stepped backward into the wall and disappeared entirely. Moments later, the sound of footsteps echoed behind him, but no one was there. Locals also whisper about a strange, rhythmic tapping heard in the dead of night. Some say it's just the pipes settling. Others are certain it's the sound of a phantom signalman still working his post, long after the last timetable was cleared. Today, nature creeps through the cracks and rust claims the rails, but Highgate's presence is far from gone. Even sealed off, it radiates the kind of quiet dread that makes you feel watched. Those who pass by at street level sometimes report an odd sensation as if something beneath their feet knows they're there. And so, our haunted railway journey ends where the track falls silent, but the echoes remain. These stations remind us that time may move forward, but the past often refuses to leave, especially when it's written in steel, stone, and shadow. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Which of these haunted stations would you dare to visit after dark? Have you ever had a strange encounter on a train platform, or felt that unnerving sensation of being watched while waiting for the last train? Share your stories in the comments. Your experience might be even creepier than the ones we've covered tonight. If you enjoyed this journey through the UK's ghostly railways, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more chilling tales, and ring the bell so you never miss our next stop into the unknown. And if you know someone who would love or fear this list, send it their way because some tracks are best explored together.